Turned on my television to Lucky Channel 13. Tuned in Mr. Criswell, he sure was on the beam.
With his predictions, with his convictions.
That's the incomparable Mae West singing her 1955 record, Criswell Predicts, a song that she wrote and produced on the album The Fabulous Mae West. And the person she is singing about is the amazing Criswell. And I have with me on Lights, Camera, Author tonight. He is the editor of a new collection. It's a book published by our friends at Bear Manor Media. And it is called Criswell, appropriately called Criswell Predicts, an accurate glimpse of the future. Welcome, Ed Canfield.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you for being here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember Criswell when I was growing up, when I was a kid, actually, and he would appear on TV, and I always thought he was kind of fun to listen to because he was did he call himself a celebrity psychic?
He didn't really call himself a psychic, no, because he said he claimed that he had the ability to see into the future when he was younger. Then he lost that ability when he started to make money from it. So after that, he just claimed that he made his predictions based on past history, trends, and precedents and things like that. So he didn't ever really say he was psychic per se.
He had a lot of, but he claimed to have 87% accuracy rate.
Now, what is your rate of accuracy? My rate of accuracy is around 87%.
Correct.
Are you sure he didn't mean 8 or 7%?
13% accurate, 87% accurate, possibly.
And but he did have some big predictions come true. The most famous one, and I was reading this about on a Jack Parr show in March 1963, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Where he predicted that John Kennedy was not going to be the nominee in 64 because of something that would happen to him in November 1963.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of on the money there.
Yeah, if it would have actually been on Jack Parr. I've looked at some Jack Parr footage and that particular program, and he didn't make that prediction there. That copy for that was on one of his books that came out after the fact. Also, the psychic Jeannie Dixon claimed she made the same prediction as well. So it's kind of like, nobody predicted September 11th on September 10th, really. So, he would make these claims after the fact sometimes as well.
Oh, so he was he not so much a predictor, but as a repeater, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, in time.
Now, I remember him from the Johnny Carson shows because he'd always come on like at New Year's Eve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when he was usually on. He was on more than that, but that was the main time that he would be on. Yes.
And then, of course, as I got a little bit older and got into old movies, Plan 9 from Outer Space, the famous Ed Wood movie, infamous Ed Wood movie. He was a good friend of Ed Wood, wasn't he?
Correct. And they probably met during Criswell's television show, his local Los Angeles television show, because they had a number of different directors at the time. And there's not any footage available of that show anymore. But from what I've heard and read, that the look of Plan 9, the opening and everything, is just like the Criswell Predicts show was. And so, it's been claimed that Ed Wood, he directed some television, live television, the early days of it. So I'm pretty sure that's how they met.
How did you get interested in Criswell? Because you're the leading expert on, I'm going to use his full name here. Let's get my notes here. Jerome Criswell Charles King. Did I get the number?
Jerome Charles Criswell King. Yeah.
Criswell King. Okay.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Close enough. Criswell, that simplifies it for sure. But, back in around the year 2000, Well, I had seen Plan 9 from Outer Space, so that was kind of my introduction, like most people to Criswell's Plan 9 from Outer Space. And then a friend of mine loaned me one of his books, his first book, Criswell Predicts from Now to the Year 2000. So the friend loaned me that around the year 2000. So, and he claimed the world was going to end on August the 18th, 1999. So that date had passed. So I was like, oh, well, this is his biggest, prediction right there, the end of the world prediction.
Just missed it.
Just missed it, just barely. But then I started reading the book, and then just some of his predictions were just so out there and just, it fascinated me. And I've always been fascinated with the future as well as, from reading science fiction and things like that of, what could possibly happen in the future. And his, predictions were just totally off the wall and wacky. And I got to know more about this guy. And also the Tim Burton film Ed Wood, Jeffrey Jones portrayed Criswell in that very well in that. So that was one of the things that led to it as well. And then that led to me writing his biography, which is called Fact, Fictions, and the Forbidden Predictions of the Amazing Criswell. It came out in February of this year. And that took me about 20 years. I wasn't working on it constantly for 20 years, but gathering information over time. And then, finally got it out earlier this year.
Wow. Yeah. So this book, let's make sure. I mean, this is not his life story. This is a collection of his. I mean, first off, yes, we knew him from TV. We knew him from Plan 9 from Outer Space. But he had a syndicated newspaper column for many years, didn't he?
Yes, about 30 years he had a syndicated column. And it was listed in all the trade publications, things like that. And then, it was in papers all over the country for nearly 30 years. And this book, the collection of predictions, all from the 1970s. And I got those there was a magazine put out by the publisher of his books called Quote Magazine. And it was basically just quotes, that anybody could use for whatever purpose. And he was in that, all through the 70s. Well, from about 70 to about 76. That's about when his predictions started tapering off due to health and things like that. So, so this collection is all from the 70s, mostly from that Quote Magazine.
Okay, so from Quote Magazine, do you have a favorite prediction that he made?
Man, there's so many because he did like probably tens of thousands of predictions over the years, from his columns, newspaper, magazines, books, television appearances, all of that. Man, that's tough. That's a hard one to think of. I mean, I like he predicted the end of the world on August 1999. That's a favorite because, it maybe not happened. It could have,
Depends on what you believe. What is the real world, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, we could be living in some Criswellian aftermath of that. We don't even realize it.
My favorite is when he predicted Mae West was going to be president of the United States. And he followed that up with a second prediction that Mae West, and was it Liberace's brother?
Brother George. Mm-hmm.
George was going to ride to the moon in a rocket ship.
That was in the top of my predictions of his too. Yeah. And along those same lines, one of my favorites concerning the moon is he predicted the first people on the moon would be pregnant women, astronauts. That way, they'd be ready to,
ready to populate. Hey,
populate the moon. Yeah, ready to go.
How did he? Now, how? I asked you how you got interested in him. When you first started researching him, though, I mean, what did you think? Did you think this guy was nuts? This guy was a showman, a charlatan?
A little of all of that, actually. Yeah, as I learned more, he was a little, he was an eccentric character. He, and a showman. He seemed kind of like a snake oil salesman selling the future kind of thing, a bit of a charlatan too. Although I don't think he took himself very seriously. I think he played it straight. And you can see that on the Carson show, that he played it completely straight while Carson's cracking all these jokes about his predictions and about him himself, about Criswell. And he just played it straight. And to me, one of his greatest accomplishments was just the creation of that character of Criswell. Just this character of this guy that predicts the future in this sequin tuxedo.
You've probably done more research into his life than anybody around. And I was just wondering, did you ever get to meet him?
No, I didn't. He passed away in 1982, so I wasn't even aware of his existence at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now it looks like you're his. I'm looking at your background, and I mean, looking at your wall and your back, and your hat. You look like you're his biggest fan.
Yeah, people could say that. Yeah, I am a big fan of it. Yeah, he's I guess for the past 20 years, he's just been kind of a fascination for me and kind of an obsession.
This latest book, what made you decide to compile? And first, two-part question: what made you decide to compile all the material that you have in this book? And the second is, how hard was it to decide what to put in, what to leave out?
Well, for one thing is, over the 20 years, I've accrued thousands of his predictions. And, over that time, I was thinking, after I get the biography out, I'd like to put out a kind of a companion piece of predictions. And then I found this quote magazine that he had done all these predictions in the 70s. And I really liked those predictions because they're kind of little time capsules, little twisted time capsules of the 70s. Because, they talk about Nixon and, just everything that's going on at that time, cultural things. So those was kind of the reason I picked those, because I don't think they're as well known as a lot of his predictions, from his books and some of his columns and things. So yeah, that was pretty much it.
You said that, but what to leave in, what to leave out now?
Well, basically, I kind of set it up in categories, as it's in chapters of different types. Like, so here, let me look at it real quick and remind myself of.
No problem.
The first chapter is copy, commies, carnage, chaos, crisis, civil rights, and climate change. And he would use those kind of alliterations like that to describe predictions. So that's kind of the basis I took on the chapters. So that chapter, covers that. Then there's politics and scandal is a chapter, and then people, places, and things. Another one's sex, nudism, UFOs, and outer space, which that's some of my favorite predictions of his, those that fall into that category. Ghost of Hollywood. He did lots of predictions on Hollywood for women only. He would do a lot of predictions just for women, and then the last chapter is rock and roll, robbery, riot, rape, revelry, and drugs. So I just kind of decided to group them that way, and then the ones that fit into those categories is the ones that that I would keep for the book.
You also have a section called Criswell Returned from the Grave.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that one, about that chapter.
Well, it's a story of when Criswell appeared to me one time. It was actually the 100th anniversary of his birth. I was having some double beefeater martinis at a little dive bar in Oklahoma City. That was Criswell's drink of choice, was double beefeater martinis. And I don't know, I kind of got hazy and passed out for a minute, and then I wake up and there's Criswell, and he passed on his last prediction from the beyond to me there, and then he just disappeared. It was kind of like in one of his books, his last book, Criswell's Forbidden Predictions, he talks about when Nostradamus appeared to him in kind of a dream as well. So it's kind of based on that.
Did you ever meet his wife, Halo Meadows?
No, she passed away just a few years after he did. Then they had been separated for quite some time. But no, I never met her as well. She was quite a character too.
I was going to say she was kind of a wild child too, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. Yeah, they were a good couple. I think they kind of complemented each other there. She appeared on Groucho Marx, You Got Your Life. I don't know if you've seen that. And she recites her song called Chop My Head Off.
Chop my head off, kick it around, hang it up, lay it down. Look at it, dear. Really take a good look. It's me, it's me, it's me. Oh, chop my head off. Make a nice clean chop. Chop my head off, dear. Chop it off.
Which was a good one. So, and she, she aspired to be a star and a celebrity herself, whether through plays and songs and things like that. She really liked to write songs.
Paul Marco, I was doing some research into you, and that name pops up a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little. He was a friend of Criswell, wasn't he?
He was Criswell's friend up until Criswell's death. When they met around the Plan 9 time, with Ed Wood, and I believe they met through Ed Wood, because Paul Marco's in Plan 9 from Outer Space, and then also the next film, which was originally called Revenge of the Dead, but it's now called Night of the Ghouls. And they remained friends all of that time. And I did talk to Paul on the phone once, and he was not really, helpful with the Criswell biography at that point. He said, you need to get people rights and permissions to be able to write somebody's life story and things like that. And I think maybe he felt a little bit bitter about the Ed Wood movie. I don't think he may not have felt that he got as much due as he should have on that. So he's very leery of, any other projects. Then a few years later, a friend of mine, Al Dashna, helped, he set up an interview. I was going to do an interview with Paul Marco when I was in Los Angeles for work. And the day before I got there, he passed away. So I never got to meet him or do an actual interview with him.
How about some of the other people who I don't know if she was still around when you were doing the research for his book, Mailer Nurmi, Vampira?
Really nasty thing, so.
She was. A friend of a guy, Dana Gould. I don't know if you know who he is, a comedian from Los Angeles. I'd been in touch with him. He'd been sharing some Criswell things with me and stuff like that. And he was friends with Mila. And he set it up to where I could, gave me her address, and I wrote her a letter, said, hey, would you mind answering some questions about Criswell? She said, sure, send me $100 and your questions and I'll answer them for you. So I was like, okay, that sounds worth it. So, I sent her a list of questions and she replied and everything. So, and that's definitely a treasure of mine, is that letter from Mila Nurmi. And then in the biography, there's a lot more from her, and it's from an interview that another gentleman conducted with her at the time, before her death. And so that's where a lot of that come from as well.
He was up, like you said, he was active up until a few years before his death. Some of his last predictions, can you tell me a little bit about, did he stay flamboyant up until the end?
Oh yeah. He definitely stuck with those, outrageous predictions all the way up to then. And I think that's part of the appeal was that they were, a lot of them were outrageous. Yeah. Not really believable. And he pretty much stuck with that style all the way through the end.
Yeah, but nowadays though, with Twitter and all the rest of the social media, some of his predictions, people will believe them if he was still around.
Well, I think at the time people believed some of them as well. That's he never was a major star, but he had some level of celebrity and renown. But and I think that some of the people believed it then. But I think that now, I don't think he could have achieved even that lower level of celebrity that he did then, just because of there's too much out there now. There's so much information and all of these things. Conspiracy theories and all those are just out of control. So some guy talking about the world's going to end, nobody really pays attention. It's not that not a big revelation. So I think the time he was in early television days and things like that, that helped with his reaching that minor celebrity.
But he influenced a lot of people who came after him. One that comes to mind right away is the amazing Kreskin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure he makes predictions or not, but I mean, I can see his influence.
Yeah, he doesn't make predictions. He calls himself a mentalist, and I interviewed him for the biography as well, and he didn't really claim that Criswell was influence, but he was definitely, he knew of Criswell, and from seeing him on Carson and all of that.
In your opinion, who's around nowadays? Who could, I would say, would inherit the mantle of the 10 seconds to the future type of guy,
Man, I don't know. I can't think of any, certain individual.
I mean, they're in politics probably now.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and now, I see on TV all the time these commercials for California psychics. You don't know what decision to make and things like that. Call our psychics and they'll guide you for your future. So it's
what was that woman
a commodity.
Who was that woman who had like a 900 number
back in? Man, I can't think of the name. I know who you're talking about.
I know, I'm talking about, and I can't remember what her name was.
Take back your power, babies. Call me now.
What else is coming down the pike?
Well, hopefully next year, around October 10th, will be the 100th anniversary of Ed Wood's birth. And it'll also be the 30th anniversary of Tim Burton's Ed Wood. So there's plans in the make for kind of a Ed Wood Fest or something like that, probably most likely in Hollywood. Show films, have panels and guest speakers, some tours and things. I'm hoping to do like a Criswell's Hollywood walking tour to walk from, some of the hangouts where he hung out a lot in Hollywood, and his house is just like 2 blocks south of Hollywood Boulevard off of like Cherokee there. So I'm hoping to do something like that, do a little Criswell Hollywood walking tour.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope it can come back on the show and tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure will. Yeah, if it comes together, which I think it will. There's a lot of people talking about it, and I think it's gonna come together.
Oh, fantastic. Ed Canfield, editor.
Canfield, C-A-N.
Canfield. I'm sorry, my eyes are going bad on me here. I'm looking right at it, and I messed it up. Now, you're the editor of this new book called Criswell Predicts, Forbidden Predictions from the 1970s. And I love how it says that, we are all interested in the future, that's where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And I guess nowadays you could say we're all interested in the internet because that's where we're all going to be spending our lives from here on out.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's accurate. That's an accurate prediction.
It's from Bear Manor Media. Mr. Canfield, again, thank you for being on Lights, Camera, Author.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Jim.